All right, welcome into the garage area. We are still on Zoom, unfortunately. We intended to be in person and in the new recording area at this point, but life gets in the way in a short NASCAR off season, and we're still in the same spot that we are. But we were able to watch the clash together, at least part of it, and before we ran into internet troubles there. And the the race itself, I thought was pretty good. You watched all the Saturday action, I believe, and the stuff that I watched from Sunday night. I remember when we were getting ready to start the last chance qualifier, you said that this is going to be a wreck fest, and there was a lot of contact in both races. In the last chance qualifier, there was a lot of contact, and in the first half, I'd say, of the main event, there was
Yeah.
some beating and banging a little bit.
Yeah. Um,
But Chase Elliott ended up being the winner and in dominating fashion, sat on the pole, led quite a few laps. I don't know how many,
171.
and won the race. And that is his first victory since April last year. And it is the first win in the Napa car since like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that you're pretty excited and ready to talk all about it. And so I'll go ahead and throw it to you. What do you got?
Well, I know you didn't watch the heats and stuff, and that from my expectations from the heats and to the racing on Sunday night there, kind of Sunday night, it was a lot better than I thought it would be. The heats were only 25 laps, so once things got going, whatever, you didn't really have much of the tire wear that you would eventually saw on Sunday. So, but overall the event far exceeded what I thought it would do. Kind of I was expecting more of what would happen at LA Coliseum, but I kind of forgot about the roughness of this track compared to the Coliseum where they lay down brand new asphalt each time. So, after I say like you watched in the first half uh, of the main event where Chase Elliott led the first 96 laps of it, I believe it was, and he eventually wore out his stuff, and he got passed by Hamlin and Reddick. Where then you saw the second half where I say Hamlin and Reddick when they were fighting each other on restarts and stuff for 5 laps here or there. That I think they ended up burning their stuff when Chase Elliott rode behind them and his stuff prevailed at the end. So that kind of gave me kind of hope that maybe this is one of the better short track races we've seen. Um, you uh, even like the leader, Chase definitely got some help, people letting him by, but I did see people able to move people out of the way without wrecking them. But I mean, obviously, people were more aggressive than that and wrecked people. But I felt like the event overall was a good event, although I may be a little biased, but
No, I agree with you. I do think that I wasn't sure what to expect. I knew that it was a really small racetrack, but I'd never seen a race at Bowman-Gray of any kind before. None of the modifieds, none of anything. I knew it had a reputation for being the madhouse, but to me, I think that is largely lent itself towards the drivers that race there, not necessarily the racetrack itself. And I didn't have the same feeling that we would have. I thought we'd see like a Martinsville type race to where it was not a lot of speed and guys are, having to bump each other out of the way. But I didn't really expect to see the amount of wrecks that we saw before the weekend started. And then once things, started to take place on the racetrack, it's like, oh, this is going to be a situation where guys are going to get really physical with each other.
well,
Uh,
especially in like the cut lines for the heat races and uh, trying to race their way into it and the last chance qualifier. I felt the main event was far calmer than I expected it to be.
yeah, it's true. And the one thing that you mentioned too was that this surface was more worn out than the surface that we saw at the Coliseum. I'm certain that that played a role in just the handling of the cars and the way that the tires worked and all that. Um, the other thing too, I think that this track is small enough, as is the Coliseum, but from a difference from our typical short track that we go to on the Cup Series schedule is that it's so small the aero doesn't play a factor at all. And even
It
at a
played a
track like
lot less of a
Martinsville, it's
factor. Anyways.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
played. It was very minimized,
yeah,
and even at Martinsville, yeah, it's certainly not the same as like a mile and a half in Bristol too, but it's still a thing. and I didn't even hear. To me, it was not obvious that it was a factor by any means.
Yeah. Chase talked about his car getting tight in traffic, like once, like some little bit of aero and stuff that was affecting him when I think it was in like the first half of the race, anyways. I think by the time he got in traffic in the second one, it was getting near the end of the race and tires had already worn out, so that probably helped that the cars out in the back had used up their stuff enough he could get by at that point. But especially on new rubber and stuff, I think aero was still pretty important.
Do you think, speaking of tires, that this racetrack actually wore the tires out, or did it do like what Denny Hamlin talked about last year, to where it just got them heated up faster and the opportunity to cool them back off allowed Chase to pass?
I think what I understood, people talked about that the tires were actually wearing out. They did show clips where you could see rubber on the track and stuff, kind of like last fall's Martinsville. You could see things really rubbing up. I don't think you saw quite to that effect. I mean, 200 laps at a quarter mile is 50 miles. So, I mean, obviously, I don't think you're gonna get that much rubber that you would in Martinsville at 250 miles, but um, I think it did wear out the tires. I think they specifically had a softer tire for this, similar to what they probably ran at Martinsville. So I think there
Right.
was true tire wear in this.
That's good. That's a positive thing. And like you said, if you can see rubber on the racetrack, I mean that's a sure sign that your tires are wearing out, and that's what you want in NASCAR for sure. Did the I guess the other thing that I was going to ask you is, when it came to Clash victories in the past, we think of like um I remember when Joey Logano won in first year of the Coliseum. What was that? 2022 or
Uh,
two? Must have been 22.
2, 3, 4, yeah. It was
Yeah,
3 years, so yeah.
it was like I remember he won that race, and it was like, yeah, this is exciting, but I don't necessarily feel like he's going to have the opportunity to be fast every week just because he won the Clash.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there is actual momentum that rolls forward here with Chase Elliott?
Well, I felt like he was catching fire at the end of last year, and I feel like I saw that run in Martinsville. Ended up at the top five. He had older tires by the end of that race, but I feel like some of his faster races were at the end of last year. It was like he was, even though he won early at Texas, I felt like he wasn't fully out of his slump. What was it, 2023 slump, where he got injured and didn't win a race that year and stuff. And I feel like they still spent a lot of 2024 getting back up to speed. And I know at the end of last year they started putting Kyle Larson's little bit of Larson setups in his car also. So I think there's been a little more collaboration there, and I think I can see. I think there is going to be some momentum with this. I mean, obviously nothing's guaranteed, but I think he's continuing off of 2024.
I heard Kevin Harvick's Victory Lane interview with him on the show that Harvick does,
Yeah.
and it I believe it was Chase that said it, that this is still the same group of guys that shows up to the racetrack, that unloads the race car, that gets it set up, that makes your Saturday adjustment. Like, everything is the same for this race weekend. You're still racing very top tier talent, even though that the format's a little different than a normal race weekend. Like, you still have to put this together like a normal race weekend, and they did that. And that factor alone gives them confidence to move forward. And I never really thought about it from that perspective. And I think that that's um, a very good perspective to have if you're somebody that's trying to gain momentum and feel just the confidence that, hey, we're a good race team. We can go and do this week in and week out. And obviously, his teammate Kyle Larson outperformed him a lot last year. I wouldn't be surprised if you see that turn a little bit this year. I don't know why. I don't really have any actual evidence to support that. That's just a theory of mine. I think that the nine is going to be really fast every week this year.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the uptick at the end of the last year or whatever. I'm excited for the start of this year because obviously I saw that, and I don't know if maybe Larson fell off last year or just had some bad luck, but I also saw Byron fall off also. So I don't know if one person Hendrick goes up and the other ones fall down, or what the deal is with that. But I definitely saw Chase on an upswing, so I'm excited for
I'll tell
this
you what
year.
I saw, speaking of Martinsville, was two Chevy teammates side by side, so that Byron could get into the
Yeah,
final four. So, it does definitely seem like Hendrick's in full swing one way or the
yeah,
other.
yeah. I
The
also saw a Toyota falling through the field with
Yeah, he
four good
did.
tires. So
Yeah. Hey, he allegedly had a flat.
yeah.
And what you didn't see is any Ford manipulation other than Blaney just running away with the thing. Um, Speaking of that, Ryan Blaney did have a kind of a whole rough weekend until the actual main event. Got in through a provisional and started in the back of the field, ran all the way up to the front, and looked like he had something for the nine at one point, and then just never was able to get there. Were you nervous that the 12 was going to pass the nine?
Yeah, I thought for sure the 12. They specifically talked about how he was rolling the center of the corner. It was like Chase was doing the diamond. He'd kind of be on the curb, off the curb, and off and back on the curb, whatever. And the way that almost felt like Blaney was going to get him in the middle of the corner and get him loose off the corner. I thought for sure that bump was coming. I think Chase's drive off just kind of kept it enough away from him that I think obviously Blaney eventually used up his stuff. There at the end, Chase was able to pull away. But I thought for sure Blaney was going to have him because we talked about it being like a Martinsville. That was kind of been Blaney's type of track. So I was like, yeah, it's probably going to come down to Blaney, but fortunately not.
Yeah, very true. And it looks like Ryan Blaney's picking right up where he left off and able to put together um, a good race after having a really strong finish to the year. He mentioned today on Door Bumper Clear when he was on there that he was just looking to finish at Daytona. And I think that that's really going to set the tone for his season and find out if he's got the opportunity to be fast every week or just if he kind of heats it up at the end of the year like he did the last couple.
Yeah,
Um, Anything else that you want to talk about from the race itself?
not from the race itself, no.
Let's talk about the Clash as a whole. Um, it used to be pole winners at Daytona. That's what the traditionalists wanted. That's what they love. That's how it's was originally set up to work. Busch sponsored the Clash race. Busch sponsored the pole award, and if you won a Busch pole, then you got to race in the Busch Clash. Now we've moved away from that due to whatever their reasons were, ratings or attendance or what. I don't know what the official response is to that, but we saw them go to the LA Coliseum, went out there 3 years, and now we went to Bowman-Gray. Obviously, the identity of the Clash has morphed into something different than what it was for many years. Where are you at with it? Do you think that it should just go back to Daytona and be traditional? Do you think that it should stay at Bowman-Gray? Do you think that it should move around every now and then?
Yeah. You know, I kind of had the feeling I don't like the restrictor plate product right now. So seeing the Clash go back to Daytona doesn't do anything for me. I just like it's like yeah, whatever. I mean, 20 cars out there now. Like if they just went pole winners and 20 cars and 20 laps, whatever. Just to me, it's going to be two by two, and the front row is going to be the was going to come out to however they line up. I mean, obviously there's probably a wreck or something here will happen, but to me, just that product uh, doesn't I don't know show out, I guess, or whatever I'm trying to say. But I was thinking, they moved the All Star race to North Wilkes-Barre, or however you pronounce it, and
Yeah,
I just kind of thought about this the other day. It's like, well, maybe they could do a Clash thing uh, at Charlotte or something also, instead of like that, maybe you can go to a mile and a half or something, because that's been one of the best tracks for racing product with this car. That kind of crossed my mind. Everybody's talking about these small, short tracks and, going up and fix their facility for them and run a cup race there. And I don't see that feasible for a lot of tracks and whatnot. It's almost like they're asking for help or handouts. And, Bowman Gray, obviously they were, if you want to save teams money, keeping it close to the shops and stuff, I think is the best deal. So to me, I would like to see them try it like almost an all-star type format for the Clash at like a mile and a half, like right close by or something. That'd be the only other option I could think of. I don't mind this Bowman Gray set up the way they had it. I thought the race turned out pretty good. There's been rumors about going overseas or whatever, and that to me just costing teams money for, with the Clash format, only half the teams get to make the race. I don't see you if they do a Clash overseas. I would think to be more fair to the teams that have to go, you should account for all of them. That just becomes another race. It's like nothing special as far as merit of making the race. So
Yeah.
that's my views on that part, I guess. But
My thought would be as far as going international, like the NFL plays London games. They've played games in Germany in the past, and they're trying to reach their product to other areas. But the NFL is hugely popular, not just in the United States, but worldwide. NASCAR is not. It was at one point and then fell off a cliff. And I think that you've got to grow your product inside your own country a little bit bigger before you are interested in going international, in my opinion. Um, I don't have a problem with that necessarily. I don't mind if you use the Clash as a test for that in order to go to Mexico City or Montreal or wherever you plan on going. Um, but beyond that, it just I'll tell you what I want to see. I want to see the Clash back at Daytona. And I get what you're saying about the restrictor plate package right now. The restrictor plate package has ebbed and flowed over the years. We've seen a lot of different things flow through the racing style of Daytona. But what I loved was Saturday night Clash or shootout or whatever you wanted to call it. Sunday Cup qualifying, Thursday dual races, race Sunday, the Daytona 500. Just that whole Speed Weeks experience, seeing cars on track, seeing the whole thing, it'd just be at Daytona what I would want personally. And then I thought too about these short tracks, like you were saying, that are saying, bring your product here, invest in our racetrack so that, we can continue to move forward. I don't really have a problem with that either. I would like to see NASCAR invest money. I mean, they own Bowman-Gray now, but if if you wanted to see some of these smaller tracks like Hickory and some of the tracks that are up in the Northeast and out in the mid, whatever the case is, if you wanted NASCAR to invest in that, if I was NASCAR, I would invest some sort of um, underwriting in the Cars Tour and say, here's some money to put toward racetracks, and in exchange, we're gonna have our drivers run a race here and there, or put all of them in a Cars Tour All Star race of some sort at these racetracks every now and then, so that you've got the right tracks on or the right race cars on those types of racetracks instead of trying to put these tank cup cars on tiny little racetracks. That's my thought on it. I would love to see guys like Kyle Busch and Shane Van Gisbergen and Ryan Blaney and Joey Logano, and I'm trying to think somebody else that really talented, Ross Chastain, just guys that have raw talent, speed, get in race cars that are designed for tracks like that. And I think that that would take away, like the argument with Kyle Busch right now is, well, if he's an RCR equipment is bad right now. So we don't know if Kyle Busch is washed up or if RCR is just not producing good race cars. We'll put them all in, late model stock and see how they race and see what the true ability of talent shows through there. I don't know. I think that something like that would be kind of cool to achieve this, put us back at the grassroots tracks uh, thing that they're trying to go for right now, and just put my Clash back at Daytona. That's what I'm looking for.
it'd definitely be neat to see all these guys. And I've even thought about it, even like putting them in an Xfinity car itself. I'd love to see one race with the Cup drivers in an Xfinity car and see how that race goes. And obviously there's a lot of logistics to doing that and stuff whatnot, but it's just something out there you just want to see how it goes.
Yeah, it's true. I think that the sad thing is how we're discussing, well, what is the identity of the Clash? Well, what is the identity of the All Star race? Well, should we be going international? We've just changed a new car. What about the playoff point system? It's just like NASCAR is caught in this blender of what do we do from here? And it doesn't seem like anything that they do is working out well. And I think that this is I'm taking the Clash, this current race that we just watched, out of that equation because I think that this did go well. I think that they couldn't have done it any better as far as the pageantry at the racetrack from what people that were there have said. Obviously, I wasn't there to see that, but I don't necessarily think that that translated through TV, but that's not NASCAR's fault. That's Fox's fault. And then you go to just the on track product. I just thought that it exceeded my expectations. I was very happy with it. That's all I can really say.
Yeah, speaking of the like atmosphere, I think that's one thing they tried. You talking about NASCAR trying to bring in a new audience. That's what they tried doing in LA. They tried bringing that like Californian type of group into there. And from hearing what I said, people were there for not for the race, but for other shows and things to that effect. And in the end, it just they weren't interested in NASCAR, and it kind of slowly dwindled out. And where you Bowman-Gray, I mean, that's pretty much the heart of NASCAR down there in the South. I mean, I think if they keep going down there, they're going to keep packing that place. I mean, obviously, there's only like 17,000 seats. I mean, but they're going to actually have a true NASCAR fan experience down there. That's one thing I liked about it. Make the fans you have happy instead of like trying to cater to other things that other fans that might not appreciate what they're getting.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Um, I guess a couple of the other things that came to mind, um, the Ty Gibbs deal, him getting airborne after trying to retaliate. He looked kind of silly on that.
Yeah.
Did you agree?
Yeah. I mean, he obviously didn't mean to go airborne, but that was, I think it made the airborne made the incident look worse than what it really was.
Yeah.
But I mean, Gibbs, that's something he would do. So
Yeah, it does feel that way. And then I think that Ricky Stenhouse is getting a lot of um, negative feedback or grief or whatever you want to say for what took place on the racetrack there. What is your thought on that
yeah.
situation? But lay it out for the people first. What happened?
It was the Bowman-Gray driver. You remember his name?
So there, I don't remember which one it was. There's Tim Brown, and then there's Bert. Can't remember his last name.
I could be wrong, but I think it was him.
Yeah,
Bert.
I thought it was Bert
It
too.
was a 50 car, I think.
Okay, then that's Bert.
Okay, and anyhow, to me, I actually saw a better angle of it on Twitter than Fox ever showed. But it looked like to me uh, the oh, I got a pop up on my screen. Lost all concentration. Looked like to me Bert got loose off the corner and almost came down, and Ricky had his nose there, and it was like a self-inflicted thing. I don't think Ricky did anything wrong.
Yeah,
That was what I saw.
yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that Ricky was doing anything malicious to try to wreck him. And I think that he just kind of got himself crossed up and across the 47's nose, and that caused an issue.
Yeah.
Um, who was who turned the 77 into the wall?
Was that during the main event?
Yeah, I think so. Wasn't it Priest that did he? Was it Priest that because the 77 was right hooked, wasn't he?
Mm,
I can't. Now
I don't remember.
I'm starting to question myself. I saw a right hook and was basically going to ask you if you thought there'd be any ruling from NASCAR on that. But
Yeah, I haven't
this
heard
isn't
something.
ringing a bell at all.
No.
I feel like it was Priest um, that hooked the 77, but I might have that completely wrong. Actually, I know that I have it wrong because I think it was Bell that shipped the 77 because Logano got into Bell real hard and then Bell hit the 77
Yeah.
and sent him up the racetrack. But yeah, that either way, there was a right hook event on the racetrack, and now I feel like an idiot for not knowing who it was. But
Yeah,
um,
on Racing Reference, there's a 77, 20, and 22 incident. So
yeah, that was.
I don't.
There's got to be see if there is Priest in the 60 car mentioning anything.
Um, I don't see nothing for as the main event goes. All but Priest did ship someone. I don't remember. It was Jones, I think.
Could have
I don't know
been.
if it was in a heat race or something. I saw that, but
Yeah, I didn't see the heat races, so it had to have been the last chance qualifier if that happened. I do remember that event happening, but I feel like it was Ryan Priest, and I can't remember who the car was. But regardless, I wasn't sure what NASCAR's thoughts would be on that and what your thoughts were on it, but apparently it wasn't even memorable for you. So
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there was a lot of intentional shipping cars and wrecking cars. They could probably penalize half the field if they wanted to.
yeah, but specifically the right hook being the problem.
Yeah.
Like I don't have a problem with guys turning each other or hitting each other, but when he came down across the straightaway and hooked him into the wall, that's not good. And that's I just I'll look that up and we can get back together on that
Yeah.
particular conversation. But it just I didn't. It was one of those things where I watched it happen and I didn't think much of it, and then it was like a couple caution laps later. I'm like, I wonder if he's going to be in trouble for that. And I don't remember seeing like a good replay to get a good vantage point of what happened. So, but regardless, that's not really um, a huge deal. I just wondered what you thought about that. But okay, so we covered the race as a whole. We covered what we think about the clash. Is there anything that you're looking for? Obviously, we have an off week here before we get to the actual 500. Um, Anything else that you wanted to kind of bring up before we leave the clash weekend? Anything else that stood out to you?
Um, Not that I can think of right now. That was,
Yeah, yeah, me either. I thought that I was interested to hear what Chase said. I was interested to hear what Blaney said on DBC and what Denny said on his podcast too. I thought that just all of them didn't really talk a whole lot about the race, but thought that we saw good racing at Bowman-Gray, and I would agree with that. I thought that the product on the racetrack was very good.
yeah.
But we'll we'll kind of get back together here next week and talk about what we expect to see going into the season, and have a little more structured show at that point, and different talking points to work through. But it is nice to get back into the swing of things and to see cars on the racetrack. And I'm sure you're awfully happy to see the checkered flag fall over the nine. So
Yeah.
um, I'm hoping to see that happen with the 22 as we go to Daytona as well.
Yeah.
So that'll make everybody happy. All right. Well, that'll be it for this week. And we will see you guys next week back here in the garage area.